Hello, hello everyone. So in today's video, we'll be discussing the bones, specifically the bony landmarks uh, in the femur and the pelvis, as well as the ligaments and the joint types. So basically, we'll be discussing about this rigid. All right. So let's discuss the humerus landmarks. So here, I'm talking about the femur. Sorry. So the femur, we can divide the landmarks into three: proximal and the shaft and the distal. Right? So for the femur proximal part, there are the head and neck. So these are very easy places to identify. So there is the head and neck, there is the there's the head and the neck, as well as the greater trochanter and lesser trochanter. However, these can only be found actually the lesser trochanter can. So we have the head and the neck, we have the greater trochanter. So we have here the greater and lesser trochanter. Okay. So lastly, we can find two other things, which are the intertrochanteric line and intertrochanteric crest. But these are very hard to identify. So in the anterior part, you can find the line, but the posterior part, you can find the crest. So let me explain it. So we can have the intertrochanteric, the intertro greater or lesser trochanter and the intertrochanteric crest. Intertrochanteric have two things, the line and crest. Just imagine the pizza. This is the pizza, okay? The crest is in the posterior part and the line in the anterior, right? So just know that the posterior has the crest. And finally, we can have the fovea capitis. So the fovea capitis. So basically, this is the part. Yeah, the fovea capitis. Lastly, here we can have the fovea capitis. Alright, so fovea capitis. We can have head and neck, greater trochanteric and lesser trochanteric in the intertrochanteric line and crest. The crest can be defined in the posterior part of the femur and the line in the anterior part. And here the fovea capitis. Capitis from the head, so cap and fovea, alright? This is where some ligament will be attached. So greater trochanteric, lesser trochanteric, intertrochanteric crest. Okay, alright. So, secondly, in the shaft. So head, neck, and three things. All right. How about the shaft? So the shaft can have four things. The linea aspera. So basically, you can have linea aspera. You can have two lines actually. Have two lines, the gluteal and pectineal. So pectineal line and gluteal tuberosity. So pectineal line and gluteal tuberosity. Pelgets. Just remember Pelgets. Okay? You know Pelgets? That guy. So we're gonna have Bell, which is pectineal line, and get for the gluteal tuberosity. So pectineal line, Bell, and gets for gluteal tuberosity. Alright? Pectineal line and gluteal tuberosity. The gluteal line can arise from the greater trochanter. So gluteal line. This one will arise from greater trochanter. So here is the gluteal tuberosity from the greater trochanter, and from the lesser we can have the pectineal line. So greater and lesser. Okay, that's very nice. Pectineal line, lesser trochanter. Pectineal line, gluteal tuberosity, and pectineal line. And the linea aspera, we talked that the linea aspera has two things: the medial and lateral lip. The medial and lateral lip. The nutrient foramen, and also you can have the nutrient foramen. Nutrient foramen. So nutrient foramen, right? So let's recall. For the proximal part, we had the head and neck. This is the first thing, and the greater and lesser trochanter, and the intertrochanteric line, which is in the anterior part, and the intertrochanteric crest in the posterior part and the fovea capitis. So basically 3 things. I'll be discussing 3 points, and in each one also 3. I'll try to compact them into 3. All right? Intertrochanteric line and crest, okay, and the fovea capitis, and also you can have here the pectineal line and the gluteal tuberosity, and we have the linea aspera, the medial and lateral limb, and then nutrient foramen. All right. Lastly, the distal part. Distal part, you can also have different things. We can have the condyles, the epicondyles, and also we can have fossa and surface. So here in the intertrochanteric fossa, intercondylar fossa. Sorry, intercondylar fossa. So intercondylar fossa and the surface. So patellar surface. Posterior surface. Actually, we can categorize them in a different way. So basically, we can have something in the anterior and something in the posterior. This is the posterior part. The anterior. So the anterior part, we can have the intercondylar fossa. But the posterior part, we're going to have the patellar surface. So remember, medial and lateral condyle, epicondyle, medial and lateral, and the anterior part, we're going to have the patellar surface in the anterior part, because the patella is found in the anterior part, and the posterior part, we're going to have the intercondylar fossa. The intercondylar fossa. So here are 6 things, but lastly, we're going to have the adductor tubercle. The adductor tubercle. We're gonna have the adductor tubercle. So, just a note here. Each one will have 3 and also 1 note. So this one was the note, the fovea capitis. Here we're gonna have the adductor, the adductor tubercle. So the adductor tubercle. So in the medial condyle. So basically, let me draw it here. So this is the anterior. We're gonna have one more here. The medial condyle and then the lateral condyle. We're gonna have adductor tubercle, adductor tubercle, adductor tubercle. So you're gonna have adductor tubercle plus the medial. So we have the adductor tubercle, and here's the medial epicondyle. So adductor tubercle underneath is the medial epicondyle. Alright? So this is all about the landmarks. Let me recall them back from proximal part. We can have the head and neck, greater trochanter in the posterior, and the anterior part, the lesser trochanter, and the intertrochanteric line, which is found in the anterior, and the intertrochanteric crest in the posterior part, and the capitis fovea. In the shaft, we're going to have medial lateral condyle, medial lateral epicondyle, and the intercondylar fossa and the patellar stapes. And also we're going to have the adductor tubercle, which is above the medial epicondyle. Adductor tubercle above the medial epicondyle. The shaft, we say there are 3 things. The linea aspera, we're going to have the medial lateral, we're going to have the pectineal line, which we call Bell-Getz, pectineal line, gluteal, Bell-Getz, pectineal line, and gluteal tubercle, tuberosity, and gluteal tuberosity, yeah, pectineal line, Bell-Getz, pectineal line, and gluteal tuberosity, and the nutrient fovea. Alright? So that's all. Let's move about landmarks which could be found on the pelvis. Alright? So on the pelvis. We can divide them into the ilia, the ischium, and the pubis. We're going to have the sacrum, the coccyx, and the hip bone. So the hip bone, we call it the hip bone, which is called, so the hip bone, or let's call it the hip bone. Hip bone. So the hip bone consists of the greater false pelvis and the lesser true pelvis. Sacropromontory. So the pelvis prim is having the sacropromontory anterior, the pubic symphysis, and the idiopectineal line. So as you can see here, there is the hip joint, the sacrum, and the coccyx. You can also have the greater false rib and the pelvic prim and the lesser pelvis. Lesser pelvis is the true, greater pelvis. Okay, we can have, this is the border of the pelvic brim. So the pelvic brim has the sacral promontory and the pubic symphysis. Posterior, the sacral promontory. Anterior, the pubic symphysis. And laterally, the iliopectineal line. Anterior, pubic symphysis, sacral promontory, and iliopectineal line. The brim, yeah, sacral promontory, and the pubic symphysis, and the iliopectineal line. The iliopectineal line. The posterior part, we can have the anterior, the pubic arch. The posterior, we can have the pubic arch. And ischial tuberosity and the sacral tuberous ligament. The tip of the coccyx. So the outlet will be having, this is the inlet. So the inlet, sacral promontory, anterior pubic symphysis, the iliopectineal line. This is the anterior. This the inlet. The outlet will have the pubic arch. So posterior part, the pubic arch, and this is the anterior part, the posterior border. Sacral promontory. So the inlet contain sacral promontory on the posterior border, anterior border the pubic symphysis, lateral border the iliopectineal line. The outlet, we're gonna switch it like that. So this one will be having the posterior. So the posterior part is, the anterior will stay the anterior. The anterior will stay. The anterior border is the pubic symphysis. On the outlet, the anterior border will be the pubic arch. And the posterior part will have the tip of the coccyx, and the lateral border will have the ischial tuberosity, and the sacrotuberous ligament. Ischial tuberosity, and sacrotuberous ligament. Ischial tuberosity. So the ischial tuberosity, this is where you sit. Where you sit is the outlet. Where you sit is the ischial tuberosity. Where you sit is the outlet, and the sacrotuberous ligament. So the adaptation for the childbirth, we're gonna have less prominent ischial spine, and So the ilium is in the pubis. So let's come back to here. In the ilium, we're gonna have the iliac crest, the iliac crest. Okay. We can have the anterior, superior, anterior, inferior, posterior, superior, posterior, inferior. Okay. We can have the and then we have iliac. Oh, sorry, this is all the iliac spine. You can have also the iliac crest and fossa. So basically, the fossa crest is the outer part. The crest is the outer part, and the fossa is the inner part. Crest and fossa. And lastly, the auricular surface and the arcuate line. Auricular surface and the arcuate line. Line. Okay. You read this? The lines, actually you can have them as lines. You can have can also have the anterior and posterior gluteal lines. The anterior and posterior gluteal line, anterior and inferior. Anterior. You can have three lines actually: the posterior, the anterior, the posterior, the anterior, and the inferior gluteal lines. Posterior anterior, this is the posterior. Anterior superior, anterior inferior, posterior superior and posterior inferior, and the iliac crest and the iliac fossa, all of them having the wing. And the line, we have the posterior and anterior gluteal line. Also can have the arcuate line. So here we can have the arcuate line, the arcuate line, and after that arcuate line, the pecten pubis. Pecten pubis, arcuate line, البعبع. So arcuate line, actin pubis. Arcuate line, actin pubis. Arcuate line and pecten pubis. Anterior superior iliac spine, anterior inferior iliac spine. Now we can have the iliopubic, greater sac notch. So in the ilium we have this one, the crest and fossa, and the lines, and gluteal lines, and the arcuate lines. Pecten pubis. When it comes to the pubis, Here we have rami and body, superior pubic rami and inferior pubic rami. So pubic rami, superior pubic rami and inferior pubic rami, and the pubic body. Pubic body, superior pubic rami and inferior pubic rami, inferior pubic rami and superior pubic rami, superior pubic rami and inferior pubic rami, and the pubic body. Obturator foramen, and that junction we can call the obturator, obturator, obturator foramen. It's called obturator foramen. So let's revise the femur proximal. We had intertrochanteric crest and line. Crest is posterior and anterior is the line, and the lesser and greater trochanter, and the actually the head and neck, and the fovea capitis, the linea aspera, medial leg, and the nuclear foramen, and the pelgates, pectineal line, and gluteal tuberosity, and down there we have condyle, epicondyle, and the medial epicondyle. Above this there is the adductor, adductor tubercle. In the medial epicondyle, all this is the adductor tubercle. Okay, and here we have the ilium. We said the ilium has 4 iliac spine and the iliac crest and fossa, and we had the lines. We had the posterior, anterior, and inferior retinal arcuate line and pectium pubis. Here we have the rami, superior, inferior rami on the body, and obturator foramen. We can also have, last thing, the ischia, the pubic crest of surface. Pubic rami, sacral promontory, and the margin of the ala, arcuate line, pectium pubis, and pubic symphysis. This is a nice one. Sacral promontory, margin of the ala. This is the margin of the ala. Margin of the ala. So there were three things: the pubic crest, pubic tubercle, and the pubic symphysis. Symphysis, crest, and tubercle. Obturator foramen. Obturator foramen. Obturator foramen. Obturator. Lastly, the ischium. Can have a lot of things. Superior, inferior, ischial ramus, body, ischial spine, ischial tuberosity, spine and tuberosity, spine, tuberosity, lesser sciatic notch, ramus, ischial, the body, the rami, the inferior, the superior and inferior, inferior. Ischium. We have spine and tuberosity. Ischial spine, the ischial spine, ischial tuberosity, ischial spine, ischial spine, ischial spine, and tuberosity. Now, let's do the ligament. The pelvic inlet, the pectineal line, So yeah. Ellie explains. Ellie eminence. Iliopubic eminence. Iliopubic eminence. We also have acetabulum fossa. Acetabulum labrum. We have the acetabulum margin, the acetabulum margin. We have the acetabulum fossa. We have the acetabulum margin. مش لازم تحفظها الحاجات دي. acetabulum margin, acetabulum fossa, and we have the acetabulum notch. Acetabulum margin, acetabulum fossa, acetabulum notch. Notch fossa margin. ligaments of the head of the femur. Ligament of the head of the femur. Ligament of the head of the femur. This is adductor. Ligament of the head of the femur. Adductor. Of later importance and other relaxed bearing. Relaxed. It's relaxed adductor. Transfer acetabular ligament of the head of the femur and transverse acetabular ligament. Ligaments, we can have three things actually. The ilium, iliofemoral, pupil, ilium, pupil, and femoral ligament of head of femur. Ligament teres. This is a ligament. Teres. Ligament of the head. Ligament of the head of the femur. Ligament teres and transverse acetabular ligament. Transverse acetabular ligament. Okay, 2, 3. So we have the ligament teres, which contains the ligament of the head of the and the transverse acetabular ligament, and also we have 3 ligaments. The the iliofemoral ligament, iliofemoral ligament, and the iliofemoral ligament. We have the ischiofemoral ligament, and we have the pupilofemoral ligament, and ligament teres and transverse ligament teres, ligament of the head of the femur. Okay, ligament of the femur, which is ligament teres and transverse acetabular ligament. This is in the hip. Okay, 3 ligaments and the hip. The sacroiliac joint. In the sacroiliac joint, so we call sacrospinous and sacrotuberous. have the anterior sacroiliac ligament, we have the anterior sacroiliac ligament, the posterior sacroiliac ligament, and we have the interosseous sacroiliac ligament. Anterior, so we have sacroiliac, we have anterior and posterior and interosseous. This is sacroiliac. And then we have sacro, sacrotuberous and sacrospinous. The sacrum to the ischial tuberosity to the ischial spine. And lastly, we're going to have posterior sacroiliac ligament, interosseous sacroiliac ligament, interosseous sacroiliac ligament, posterior sacroiliac ligament, the sacrospinous ligament, sacrospinous ligament, sacrotuberous ligament, sacrotuberous ligament, sacrospinous ligament, posterior interosseous. So we have the posterior and anterior and interosseous, sacrospinous, sacrospinous, sacrotuberous. Okay. Any number. Inguinal ligament, inguinal ligament, inguinal ligament, inguinal ligament, ligament of Cooper. So the ligament of Cooper and inguinal ligament. Ligament of Cooper and inguinal ligament. Transverse obturator. Ligament teres, ligament of the inguinal ligament. So here actually there are three with a very stupid name. Ligament of Cooper and inguinal and lacunar. So ligament of Cooper, inguinal ligament, and lacunar ligament. Right? Here are the three stupid things. And three stupid. These are the stupid ones. Three stupid. Ligament of Cooper. We have the ligament of Cooper and the inguinal ligament and lacunar, the lacune. So lacunar ligament, inguinal, so lacunar ligament and inguinal ligament of Cooper. ligament of Cooper. Ligament of Cooper. So they are stupid L's. Stupid L. Stupid L's contain the ligament of Cooper, the inguinal ligament, and the lacunal ligaments. Pubic symphysis contain also the superior pubic ligament and inferior. Superior and inferior and antroceus. So the pubic symphysis contain also three: the superior and inferior and the antroceus. Okay. We have the superior, inferior, antroceus, anterior, and posterior. Also, one of the important ligaments can be found on the lumbosacral. We can have it as this: lumbosacral, sacroiliac. Lumbosacral, sacroiliac. So lumbosacral, sacroiliac. That's the only thing. Lumbosacral joint, lumbar, sacral joint, and sacroiliac. Anterior longitudinal ligament. Anterior longitudinal, posterior longitudinal, lumbar, lumbosacral, lumbar, lumbosacral, lumbar, lumbar. The lumbosacral joint. We have the lumbosacral joint, and we have the sacral. We have the lumbosacral joint and sacroiliac joint. But when it comes to the ligament, we have iliolumbar, iliolumbar, sacroiliac. Lumbosacral joint and the lumbosacral joint. So in terms of the joints, we have lumbosacral joint and sacroiliac joints. In terms of the sacroiliac, there is sacroiliac, anterior sacroiliac ligament and posterior sacroiliac ligament. And also we have iliolumbar ligament and lumbosacral ligament. Lumbosacral ligament. Lumbosacral. Iliolumbar, lumbosacral, iliolumbar. So let me begin here. In terms of the joints, there are lumbosacral, sacroiliac, lumbosacral joint, and sacroiliac. Lumbosacral joint. There is the lumbosacral joint. There is the lumbosacral joint and sacroiliac joint. In terms of the sacroiliac, there is sacroiliac ligament, and I lost sorry. Iliolumbar, lumbosacral. So iliolumbar ligament is the iliolumbar and lumbosacral. Is the iliolumbar, iliolumbar again, iliolumbar again, So anterior, it's symphysis. Yeah, anterior it's symphysis, and posterior it's plane. Musical joint. So anterior is intervertebral disc. So it's a symphysis joint. Anterior it's symphysis joint because you have the intervertebral disc, symphysis joint. But the zygapophyseal joint formed between the articular process of L5 vertebrae. The facet joints, also called the zygapophyseal joints, are a set of synovial plane joints between articulars. So yeah, that's why the lumbosacral, the anterior it's symphysis because the intervertebral disc, and the posterior there are the plane synovial sacroiliac.